Hey, welcome back to Rust Order Garage and the 71 Nova LS swap, T56 swap, and all kinds of experimentation. And I lost the beginning of the upcoming video, so I got to make a new introduction. So that's why I'm in the back of the 56 Chevy truck and not on the Nova. Just a reminder, that first video was just an experiment to see if you bought a Nova. I did this for you, not for me. If you bought yourself a Nova that had a 350 or a six-banger in it, and you just wanted to take the engine out and put it in LS, would it fit? That was the whole idea of that video. Because I got a bunch of comments on, like, could you do this and that, whatever, to make it work. That it wasn't an exercise to see if I could make it work. I know I could make it work, and you could make it work. It was just a kind of a test. I wanted to see if somebody who had no real experience and didn't want to really do any fabrication could just remove their factory engine and put it in LS. So that was the whole reason I did that first part of the video. Unfortunately, what that video showed is that I don't think you would want to do that, because it looks like you'd have to lose your heater if you wanted to put an LS family engine in the same location that a 350 or a six-banger would be. The engine really needs to come forward. So again, that was just a test. So now that that's done, and I've seen that you can't just leave your turbo 350 in the factory location and put in an engine. Now we're going to make it work. And I'm also curious, before this rolls, if you could let me know in the comments, for those of you doing an LS swap into a Nova, are you trying to put it in place of just the engine, or do you automatically plan on doing an engine and transmission swap at the same time? Because as you'll see in the video, we had to move the engine forward to get some clearance, which moves the transmission crossmember forward about 3/4 of an inch, spoiler alert. And if you were to use a 4L60 instead of the turbo 350, the mount is 3/4 of an inch further back, which means that it would pretty much be like a factory type bolt-in. And in the end of this series, after we're done with the exhaust and the oil pan, the idea is to say, low buck, if you want to put an LS in a Nova, or pretty much a first-gen Camaro, buy these engine mounts, buy these headers, do this with the cross member, and buy this oil pan, and you can build yourself a low buck swap kit. So I'm just curious about that, of what you guys are doing with your cars. Other than that, let's let it roll. The first thing that has to be done is the engine needs to be put in a position that's good, that's nice, that we have clearance everywhere, that's correct. We have room for air conditioning box or the heater box, the headers, the oil pan. Everything has to be right. No sledgehammer work. No beating the snot out of parts to make them fit. At least that's not the idea. In the end, I want this to look like it was meant to be there. So, first thing I'm going to do is obviously get that engine away from the firewall. And I know as soon as I said I didn't want to have to use a hammer on anything, I'll probably have to use a hammer on everything. But the first thing I just want to look at is I'm going to take the bolts out of the crossmember that I have up in there. And it looks like I have some wiggle room forward, not to drill holes and use this crossmember, but if I leave the crossmember attached to the engine and not bolted to the subframe, if I pull the engine forward, at least I can still use the crossmember to support the transmission for a good amount, at least 1.5 inches. And I think that will be enough to do it. You see the gap I have there? It starts curving up around here, but I think that's enough that I could push it forward and make that work. And we're going to see how that works out. If that works and you didn't want to do any fabrication, you could, cut a new hole in the bottom of the subframe here and drill another hole and maybe use this crossmember more in a forward location. All right, so here's the plan. At least this is the first thing we're going to try to do. So the transmission crossmember is unbolted from the subframe. It's free to move. I'm going to try to pull the engine forward to get what looks like a reasonable amount of space to the firewall. enough that the AC box will clear. Once that looks reasonable, then we'll put the 350 frame stands on the subframe and bolt up the 350 engine mounts and try to get an idea if they line up with one of the hole sets on those Amazon adapter plates. And we'll wiggle things around to get everything set so the mounts will be bolted to the engine and sitting on those 350 frame stands, and we'll be happy with our clearances. Once that is set, maybe I can get a measurement underneath and get an idea of just how far we brought the engine forward. But I mean, I think it'll be easy to measure up here. Right now, I have maybe a half an inch from the back of the cylinder head to the firewall. Can I even get in here to measure it? Not even. I'm talking 3/8 of an inch. There's only 3/8 of an inch to the firewall right now. So if I move it an inch, well, we'll have an inch and 3/8. But I got to see how much I need in order for that AC box to fit, because even though I'm going to modify it, I don't think I'm modifying it in that area, so that has to clear. So let's see if I can move this thing. And I think first I'll just try by brute force, but I don't know if that transmission cross member is going to want to slide or try to pull the car. Well, I don't know what that, oh, what was that? I don't know what that was. Well, I got gap now, but I still don't think it's enough. That would like, what's that? I don't know what that noise was. It sounded like the flex plate binging or something. I am 1 1/8 inches. So not quite where I get an inch gap. Let me see if I can get a little bit more. All right, that's 1 3/4 inches. Just about, yeah. I mean, talking a 1/16 of an inch. Let me see. Can I get a little 16th? I'm probably pulling the crankshaft. All right. Call it 1 3/4 inches. It's actually a 1/16 more. Let me see if that's enough room for the AC box to clear, and I got to double check my levels. Okay. So now I have the engine 1 3/4 inches off the back of the head where the little casting tab is, where you would normally see the casting number. 1 3/4 inches from the firewall. The engine is level, the subframe is level, and I have the engine centered in here best I can. My driveline angle is around 3. I'm not worried about that being perfection yet. First, I just want to see if we can get the mounts in. It's right around 3, so it's not like it's radically off. It's going to be okay to start with. More concerned with getting everything leveled to the subframe, good clearances. Now, first part of the puzzle. Let's see if the engine mounts will fit. All right, I'm going to do my best to get an angle there with the camera where you can see what I'm doing. And I'll have to move around here. And I think I'm going to have to drill this out a little bit. These oval holes that they put in there, they're close, but they're not perfect. So I think the top of them need to be opened up a little bit, which is not a big deal. So what I'm going to do first, I have my 350 mount. I'm just going to set it on the frames, on the subframe here. At least I'm going to try this and see if I can do this, and then try to get the mount over it. But you know what? I don't think that's going to work for me. So let's try something else here. Let's try putting this together as an assembly and get an idea of what we're looking at here. So if this is going to be, and it looks like I've got to bring the engine up a little bit. That's one thing I do not have, I don't know. I don't know how high the engine needs to be off the subframe. It looks like I'm about, I don't know, an 1/8 inch or a 1/4 inch too low. So let me put the hoist on the engine so I can lift it up just a little bit. All right, get out the happy hooker. When's the last time you saw one of these? That was designed to fish LT1s out, Gen 2 LT1s, because they were underneath the windshield on the car. Same with the LS. So this is drilled for both LT and LS. And it's probably not good to put it right over the knock sensor wiring, but I'm not concerned with this engine. So we'll just get it on here no matter what. All right, I'm going to try to raise this engine up just a little bit. And try not to disturb the gap to the firewall, but I guess it is what it is. We'll figure it out. All right, so now this will now fit through here. Oops. That scare you? All right, let's see here. We're going to go with the holes that are one back from the front. That'll move the engine back from where it is right now a little bit. We'll have to see if that works, because the next set of holes is quite a bit different than that. So I'm going to mount that up and we'll see what that looks like. All right, so what I did was I have the engine mount bolted one hole back. You see there's one hole exposed and there's one back behind it. So that's the hole I used for the engine mounts. And then the frame stand is just hooked to it. And I did use a carbide bit to open up the hole a little bit on the aftermarket mount to get the bolt to go through nice. But you can see the holes on the subframe. I have to come back further in order to make that work. So we're already this close to the firewall. I don't know if that's going to work. Now, could always re-drill holes and modify the mounts, but I want to see if we can make this work as is. The thing is, the next set of holes, you see this is the rear bolt, is here. So you're talking about moving the engine forward another inch in order to get to the next set of holes. I'm going to set this down. I'll do the other side, set this down and see what it looks like. But I don't think that's going to work as is. All right, I think we have a winner. Okay. Mocking up some parts here. This is the short 350 frame stands, 350 mounts. All the bolts are just loose into the subframe, but the mounts are bolted up tight to the plates. Like I showed, I was one hole back on this plate. That got me, I should have measured again. I think it was about 1.25 inches off the firewall. And as I like to say, the fit is tight but right. The AC box clears with lots of room. A 1/2 inch for me is a lot of room. The the coil packs, all clear. They're going to work fine. This looks good. And if you had a turbo 350 like we do here, there's plenty of room for the dipstick to get up here. And even better, because I only had to slide it forward about 1 inch, if you could get holes drilled in the subframe in the new location, you could reuse that factory cross member and not have to make one, because right now my drive line angle is perfect. So that would work, and that's really cool. So if you have one of these cars, you're still going to have to get a longer drive shaft, but you could move the cross member forward. In fact, I'll put the car in the air. We'll take a look and see where it is. All right, underneath the car, I've got the drive shaft pretty much centered where it would be at the rear. You can see how much it's sticking out. Way too much. It's probably 2 inches, inch and a half at least, too short. So we'll be dealing with that. But the good thing is, this is doable. I have the cross member, because it was bolted up to the mount, it slid pretty evenly. If you see, I have this edge is pretty much in the middle of that hole. Same here, which means the cross member is straight. Now, if I look underneath, we just didn't make it on the rear, and on the front, you could drill straight up into that and put a new hole in it. And how's this one? Same deal. Just didn't make it. Drill a new hole there. So you could very easily just weld a little tab on the back of the cross member right there, so you got something to drill through. Or if you really want, I mean, I guess you could oval out that hole further and move the bolt up, but that's up to you how you want to handle it, whatever's easier for you. But that will allow you to use the factory Turbo 350 cross member with your Turbo 350 transmission. All right, so that's pretty cool. So that means you can do this with the $22 eBay plates, the reproduction short and narrow 350 frame stands, and a pair of 350 engine mounts. I am going to replace that one with a solid on the driver's side. And you can use your factory Turbo 350 cross member, just slide it forward. I can't tell you how far did we move it, maybe an inch. Don't drill holes until you get the engine located. Use the engine mounts to locate it, and then who cares, drill it up and it'll work. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put nuts on all of those engine mounts, because I'm going to keep those in place. I'm going to use those because right where the engine is where I'm going to put it, even with the 6-speed. That's where it's going to be. So next thing I have to figure out is, let's see. Oh, I want to show you a regular non-AC heater box with the engine in this position, and we'll check the clearances there. And another thing I was just thinking that's really cool about this. Now, the only reason I'm using the Turbo 350 for this mock-up is I just wanted to pretend if you had one of these cars and you wanted to keep your Turbo 350. Well, the thing is, measuring the firewall to the back of the head from where we were before, I went from 3/8 of an inch originally clearance to about an inch. And that's almost 3/4 of an inch. Plus, we have the bolts and the edge of the cross member to barely fit in the Turbo 350 position. If you were to run a 4L60, the transmission mount is 3/4 of an inch further back than a Turbo 350, which is perfect. So if you wanted to do this and use the 4L60, then you could very easily just about, I think the transmission cross member would just about be in the factory location. Maybe you'd have to open the holes up a little bit, but it would work great. So that makes it even easier. So then the only question still is, do the headers fit in this location? Remember, I still have the option of the big block frame stands. I can't remember if I talked about them in the previous video because I was trying to focus on the small block stuff. But the big block frame stands will move the engine forward and over to the passenger side. Forward is fine. My only question is, what would the clearance be with the AC box or the heater box? So the big question is going to be if the headers fit. If the headers do not fit and the engine would need to move up and over for the headers to work, then we're going to go back and try the big block frame stands. But for now, I'm going to try it as is with the 350 stuff. All right, I cannot easily do this with one hand because the firewall is obviously different for AC because they punch this big hole, so I've got these bumps here. The fan location is going to always be the same, so I'm just telling you, you line this thing up. There's 2 different sets of holes on this, but if I get it there, you can see you're going to make it. I'm off the firewall right now because of that flange there, but it's going to clear. So where I have the engine right now is perfect as far as I'm concerned. However, we have not tried any headers yet, and oil pan I'm not so much concerned with. I know we'll find something that'll fit. I just don't know if I'll have to go higher or not. I'm going to have to remove the windage tray. I forgot about that, but I think we're not going to have any issue with an oil pan in this location. The only, I should say, unknown is going to be the headers. If we find a set of headers out of the 4 that I have that fit in this location, we're going to be good to go. All right, I think that'll be it for this one. I'll try to do this like in stages because I don't know how long each video is going to take. We could run into something like this crazy with the mounts, or we could just be slapping something together and it works with no issues whatsoever. So I'm going to call that good as far as what mounts to use, as long as the headers fit. So put an asterisk next to that. Don't run out and buy any parts yet. Let's make sure everything works. And that'll be the next thing. We're gonna look at all the different headers that I have, fit them up, and see if any or all of them fit. I can't remember if any of them directly said they fit Nova, but they kind of implied it by the year range that they were selling them for. But we'll figure it out when we get there. So hope that helps, or it may not help at all. We'll see. But anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for following, and of course, thank you for subscribing. On to the next part of this puzzle.